Welcome to another edition of Kanopy Conversations, where we celebrate bold voices in independent cinema. I'm your host, Christian Pierce, and today we're thrilled to be joined by the brilliant Larry Owens, actor, writer, director, and all around powerhouse. You may know him from the stage, screen, or his unforgettable comedic timing, but today we're diving into his work behind the camera. We'll talk about his acclaimed short film, The Gag, his experience in the Indeed Rising Voices program, and what we can expect from him in the future. Stick around for a conversation full of insight, humor, and a deep love of storytelling. Welcome, Larry.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Kanopy is available to many university students that are on the verge of starting their careers. With that in mind, I usually start these interviews by asking actors and filmmakers how they kicked off their careers. So let's start at the beginning. What first inspired you to pursue a career in acting, and what were some of your earliest creative influences?
I think that most artists are inspired by other artists. So just growing up with a great diverse foundation of influences from music to dance to theater and film and television. So just wanting to be a part of it all. And in terms of formalizing my training, I attended the School at Steppenwolf in Chicago, which is an ensemble training program by their amazing ensemble. So you learn not only how to show up on stage as a performer, as an actor in long runs of long theatrical shows, but you also get the building blocks of ensemble theater making. So how to create a story, how to present a story, and how to tell it with a lot of nuance and high quality.
Your stage work, particularly in musical theater, has been widely praised. How has your background in theater shaped your approach to film and television storytelling?
Yeah, I think that I'm attracted to stories that are so alive, they feel immediate. And that's what you get at the theater. You really have the onus of captivating 1,000 people at one time. And so thinking of how to do that for film is really exciting for me. And figuring out how to blend those two things that feel like they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum, live performance and film technique. And so that's really what the gag was, an exercise. It's something that I conceived of cinematically first, but I also think breathes on stage. And so through Rising Voices, I got to do just a small version of that idea and see the velocity of what it feels like to have people singing close up.
You have to be able to feed off that energy in a live performance. How do you maintain that on set, either when you're in front of the camera or when you were behind the camera as director on the gag?
Yeah, as a filmmaker, as a musical filmmaker, we didn't sing live on set, so we had to create the performance in the rehearsal room and in the recording studio, which is a gift because you get to do things over and over again. You get to iris in on a precision that is really great to have live in the quality of the product, and then you also get this other experience on set where the cameras are up and just the environment that you're able to create on set, just literally Adam Pruitt's set. You know, in a 15-minute film, we did three different locations. We did an office, we did a film, a daytime talk show set, and then we also created a liminal space, a nightmarish liminal space. And so I think that that really informs how the characters are done. Ali Smith did this makeup for Sherry Renee Scott as the anti-hero Deanie, and you really get to see the quality of that makeup on camera and that detail of storytelling in a way that you don't get to see on stage. um Maxwell Losgar and Wesley Nault's costumes, like we get to see the quality of these garments and what makes Sandra Okoboyejo as Evangeline a young starlet, and what makes Sherry as Deanie a really, really established talk show host. So we just get that detail on camera, and you can really tell these stories with just an image.
Yeah, and you get a sense of that play throughout the film because you do several fairly intense close-ups on characters. So that level of costuming and makeup, even a prop, the sunglasses are very distinct as Deanie walks into the writer's room for the first time. So Ed, I'm glad you point out that subtlety between stage performance and a cinematic piece of work because there's definitely, you know, again, things you can do with a camera that you can't do on stage. So it definitely, and I'm glad to see that you were able to play with that during the course of your production. All right, so let's talk about your short film, The Gag, from 2023. What inspired the concept and what message or experience were you hoping to convey through it?
What inspired the gag is that we live in this era of constant media inundation. And with that comes a barrage of voices. And what happens to a society when every voice is uh, taken at face value, for better or for worse. And so the power of a talk show, the power of going into the living room or the cell phone to actually wherever you are, the power of that. And Deanie has no script. She wields her power in just such a I don't want to judge the character, but she does it in a bunch of irresponsible ways, is what I'll say. So I, as a writer, I'm interested again in that humanity, and out of that humanity comes this moral tale. And so it is essentially a morality play by presenting someone who is an anti-hero. I'm hoping that the audience can use their comprehension and their reasoning to decide uh, for themselves what of this is positive and what of it is negative. That actually there's a very active position of the audience member going, okay, this is a musical, but there seems to be a lot of plot. Okay, it's funny and fun, but also there's something grotesque that's happening. And I actually think that that complication is nuance. And I think that that activation is engagement. I think and that's how I want people to watch my work, not being able to choose black or white, but understanding that a real life picture might contain a lot of gray.
Yeah, and there's definitely a fair bit of gray as there's a lot to interpret as a viewer in viewing this title, and I'm always amazed, always so appreciative and respectful of short format filmmakers because you don't have a lot of time to convey your story or convey your message, and to do it in a very efficient and effective manner is takes a lot of skill. So you definitely get a sense of that throughout the Rising Voices program, but your film especially. And I was so pleasantly surprised when it started and realized that it was a musical in its genre, you know, and its styling and mode of storytelling. So it was a brave decision, but it was also a very effective one as again, the viewer watches the characters portrayed on screen, and there are several characters with which you follow and learn a great deal about kind of their inner struggle and their public persona and kind of the balance between those. So again, definitely appreciate what you brought forth in again, which is essentially a 15-minute short film, but there's a lot there. It's a very rich title. There's a distinct blend of satire and vulnerability in the gag. Can you walk us through your process of balancing humor with emotional depth in this film, and why you chose to convey the story through a musical format?
Thank you. It's a great question and a compliment. Thank you, I believe. In terms of blending the moments of humor and the moments of heart, they just naturally exist. It's just a part of life. And any good film, no matter how dramatic, has moments of lightness, and any good comedy is built upon usually some high stakes tension. And so my work is just meant to sort of tear down the walls between what we're calling genre and literally have it be an American way a melting pot. And so the way that I approach these moments is to honor humor as humor, honor heart as heart, and be on the lookout for when these two things are happening at once. And we just play one thing. And again, that audience, they are that third part of the puzzle. There's filmmaker, there's our amazing cast and crew, and then there's the people who digest it. And you're only given as much information as time allows. And so something later can color something that you saw prior, even if it's happening subconsciously. So I think it's just about being trusting and open. And you said vulnerability. There is a lot of vulnerability in presenting these people in this world so unapologetically. In terms of the musical impetus, there are several types of musical. So there is the two-act standard musical comedy, which is a musical like Hairspray or Book of Mormon, where you follow a linear story and characters. There are these numbers that feel very much like classic Broadway numbers, and it's really traditional format. Then there is a part of the musical theater genre that is a concept musical. So this is like company or a chorus line, where we may not even have a representational set, but we're still expected to follow some congruency of human emotion. And so by taking away the hyper literal nature of the musical in a concept musical, it allows other things like idea to breathe through. So the gag is a concept musical. It is built immediately upon challenge in a way that often cinema verite is. It is deliberately meant to showcase a perspective and point of view of the artist. And so but at the same time, the gag has a ton of commercial promise as well. Like you kind of see this diva, you kind of hear this amazing, pop musical theater, and you want it to be, I believe, like this very pat thing that it's happening, but that never happens. And I think that that creates, as a filmmaker, just this really rich experience, which sometimes involves frustration. So it's a bespoke genre in and of itself, the concept musical. And then how often do we see concept musicals as film? So it's breaking new ground, and I'm really happy and grateful for Indeed Rising Voices Home and Grad for giving the opportunity to do this. My producer Sam Brosco for going on this ride and for saying yes and for creating the new template for if they do a musical film again. That now they can sort of use the idea of what we pioneered as the first musical, as the only musical in this program. And also I'm really happy that they said yes to the ambition, because it is unique and it is big and that's what's exciting about it. That's what made Sherry Renee Scott, three-time Tony nominee, sign on. That's what made Mary Testa, three-time Tony nominee, sign on. That's what made Mateus Bastos, my DP, sign on. Like that's what made everyone excited about it. Um, so I'm just really grateful to have had that space as a filmmaker.
Let's transition over to the Indeed Rising Voices program, because this is an important platform to really champion the effort of diverse filmmakers. So you participated in the Indeed Rising Voices program, which supports diverse perspectives through opportunities behind the camera. How did that experience impact your growth as an actor, as a filmmaker, both creatively and professionally?
Yes, it gave me this opportunity, it gave me this calling card. It provided the foundation for my application to the Jonathan Larson grant, which I won. Uh, it gave me mentorship. I got to go to film school through this program, through the mentors that they provided as a part of this amazing program. So I not only am taking away this film, this amazing calling card for my artistic vision, not just as a filmmaker, but as a musical theater writer, I also now have a ton of foundation in terms of film studies. And I also have this cohort of filmmakers who are on to their next level, on to their next thing. People in my cohort are directing music videos for Chapel Roan and setting up their features. And so it has given access, material, and community, which is a best case scenario. And through this film, I got to work with Steve Priston, an amazing editor who's worked on the Black Panther, and we're here, we're going through my work and we're making my musical pop and shine. Mark McVillivray did the poster design for my film, and he does poster design for every film. If there's a cool film poster, Mark has done it. And so it's brought me into this network and this idea of realized possibility. So it's not just that things are possible, but things are possible and realized.
Can you describe and really I don't know how the application process for this occurred. Did you have to apply and exhibit portfolio pieces or your roster of previous work? Can you just describe how, because there are other examples of short filmmaker festivals or grants where that people can seek funds through charitable donations or universities. So can you tell us how you applied and ultimately what it was like to find out that you had been one of the chosen few?
I don't know if the application process has changed, but I believe when I applied, there was a written form. There's a submission of materials of previous work, along with an interview process. And finding out that I was given the opportunity to make my first film, it changed almost everything for me artistically, as someone who was going through the developmental phase in Hollywood. So selling projects, developing projects, but not having that chance to call action, without having that chance to go into the editing bay, without formally being able to enter pre-production. And so when given this opportunity, I just have been able to now greenlight myself as producer. I've been able to say for myself, based on that experience, I'm capable. All of these unknowns turn into knowns once we execute.
Yeah, and it's an outstanding portfolio piece. I mean, it's one thing to aspire to be a filmmaker, it's another to be a filmmaker in practice. So to have a title, to have a credit, I can only imagine the first time seeing it with an audience as the credit rolled, written and directed by Larry Owens. That's got to be an incredibly gratifying feeling and a very proud moment. So I want to talk just a little bit. What were some of the most valuable lessons or challenges that came out of working on this directorial debut? And what do you look to apply to future projects?
Yeah, I mean, we had a situation where a very key crew member got COVID during the shoot, and so immediately plans completely rerouted, but I was able to go along with that in a second. There was like almost no processing. It was just on to the next move. And that's something that you don't learn besides by being in that position. And and it impacted the film in that it wasn't the version, I didn't get to have be a straight A student for, for yeah, my perfectionist self, but we were able to still figure out how to tell the story despite these limitations, and also that like these real world things happen. Like this industry in its best sense, when it's working at its height, is run by people, is run through the contributions of humans. So when something human happens on set, like have a human response and find a human solution, which is what we were able to do. And just like learning about, just trusting all the collaborators. Once I've done the due diligence of using a ton of discernment in hiring people, like let the people contribute, like let them really really give over their artistry, and yeah, just having more trust in trust. And so, in order to embark on a film, you start with a lot of trust, and you learn a lot over it as well. So those were the two big things. Yeah, big things for me.
Yeah, and it's definitely for those outside the industry. I don't think they always realize the village it takes to make a movie, because whether it's craft services or it's the lighting crew, the camera operators. There are so many people, and these are real human beings, right? So you bring up the fact of COVID. Recently, we had, both the director and writers strikes that we had to, obviously navigate. The LA fires, which, personally impacted a lot of people outside of the office, right? I mean, they had to deal with, very real personal situations at home. So you don't really understand the trials and tribulations of filmmaking until you're in it. And I appreciate that you brought those learnings up, because I think a lot of people who've not been on a set and witnessed, the various challenges, right? Like, everything from, a car is parked in the wrong place and it's in my shot, to, somebody's late to coming to set. So you have to deal, and people are people, and that's a part of the story making process and the filmmaking process. So I'm glad you brought up that level of humanity that goes into, because so much of what we present on screen is artifice, but there's a lot of, real world situations that come into that. So I appreciate that you brought that up. uh, as we wrap up, you're a multi hyphenate actor, comedian, writer, director. How do you navigate wearing all of those hats? And do you find that one discipline feeds the others?
In terms of wearing the hats, you can only wear one hat at a time or you'll look really silly. So I just show up to individual moments with the hat that's needed. So, the directing space requires a skill and a focus. The producing space requires a skill and a focus. Acting requires a skill and focus. And so it's of having a technique for each, I think, is the saving grace because it takes away a lot of the guesswork. I'm not reaching at theory. I am just applying technique that have has worked for people um, in the past in similar situations. And then once approaching that technique with a little bit of innovation, it becomes a symbiotic marriage of precedent, but also an originality that really just like sparks a creative a spirit in people. You know what I mean? Like it takes a ton of organization to get there. It takes a ton of rigor to get there, and a ton of foundation to get there. But because this is art, once you are in the space where all of that is paid off, you get the blessing of creativity. So it's about a lot of delayed gratification, planting seeds now that sometimes don't sprout for many months or many years, but you still water them. And sometimes you get rained on as water. And so, like, getting rained on is different than watering, but, the seeds need nutrients. And so it's just this really, at this point, it's a process of again, here's this word again, trust, time, collaborators, and creativity. That's how it pulls together.
I love your analogy of watering the seeds, because these are the seeds of creativity, often need to be fostered and cultivated and, continually fed. Uh, so we know you have an upcoming season of Big Mouth coming up. Are there other future projects that you'd like to either mention or discuss? Especially, are you looking to get behind the camera again? Because again, having seen the gag and our users, I think we'll definitely appreciate it and love the series overall. But yours is a highlight as a musical film. Are you looking to get behind the camera again?
My focus right now is on the stage. There is this very malleable nature of my work where um, I think of it in both ways as I create, definitely focusing as a producer and director on stage work, but I'm eager to get back behind the camera as a filmmaker at the perfect time. And so, because my ideas are really ambitious and creative, I want to continue to have the right foundation and support for those projects. And I want it to be just as right as the gag was. So,
Well, you're such a creative voice. I know whether we see you on stage, on screen, on television, or eventually behind the camera again. I think we're all excited by what you bring to those projects, and the creativity and the voice that you have in when you're wearing all of those various hats. Uh, so with that, that's a wrap on today's episode of Kanopy Conversations. A huge thank you to Larry Owens for sharing his journey, his artistry, and his passion with us. If you haven't seen The Gag, it's a must watch. Find it through the Indeed Rising Voices collection on Kanopy, which you can access with your library card or college ID through participating universities and public libraries. And keep an eye out for Big Mouth coming soon from Larry Owens. For more conversations with today's most exciting filmmakers, be sure to subscribe and visit us at canopy.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in and happy watching. And thank you, Larry, for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.